King David had multiple wives and with them many children. The Bible mentions at least 19 sons and 1 daughter. Unfortunately, some of these children became known due to tragic events. Despite being a notable ruler, David was not immune to challenges in his family life, and some of his children faced tragic destinies that deeply affected the royal family. In this video, we will talk about the sad story of 4 sons of King David. Join us and discover all the details of this tragedy in the royal family. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and activate notifications to receive updates on new videos. David's life was filled with challenges, especially when it comes to his family. One of these challenges occurred when his daughter Tamar was a victim of violence by her half-brother Amnon. Tamar's story is recorded in the book of 2 Samuel, chapter 13. Tamar was a beautiful and virgin young woman, but her life changed completely due to the plans of her half-brother Amnon. He was obsessed with her and felt a sickening love. He thought it would be impossible to conquer her, since it was difficult to be alone with her. However, her cousin Jonadab had a malicious idea that ended up destroying Tamar's life. Jonadab suggested that Amnon pretend to be sick, and when King David visited him, he should ask his father to allow his sister Tamar to visit him and prepare a cake for him. David, without suspecting Amnon's intentions, agreed to the request. Unfortunately, when Tamar arrived in Amnon's room with the cake, he sexually assaulted her. This terrible experience marked the beginning of a series of tragedies in David's and his family's life. He sent Tamar to Amnon's house to prepare the food, unaware of the plan. When Tamar arrived in Amnon's room to serve him, he demanded that she lie with him. Desperate, Tamar pleaded with him not to violate her and suggested that he ask the king for her hand in marriage to avoid disgrace in both of their lives. Unfortunately, Amnon did not listen to Tamar and violated her. After the act, Amnon pretended to be sick and felt disgust towards Tamar, ordering her to leave. Tamar, even more desperate, pleaded not to be expelled and hoped that he would marry her to alleviate the situation. However, Amnon ignored her and expelled her from his presence. Tamar tore her robe, scattered ashes on her head, covered her face, and went home crying after seeing what had happened. Absalom, Tamar's brother, asked her if what Amnon had done was true. Although Tamar pretended that everything was fine, Absalom was already planning to avenge Amnon. The anguish caused by Amnon's act fueled the hatred that Absalom felt towards his brother. After this episode, the Bible does not tell what happened to Tamar, but the fact is that Amnon's attitude triggered a series of tragic events in the life of the royal family. Absalom plotted revenge against Amnon and killed him during a banquet he organized for the king's sons. Absalom was the son of David and Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, the king of Geshur. He had 3 sons and a daughter named Tamar, possibly in honor of his sister. Absalom's life was marked by tragedies, starting with his revenge against Amnon, which resulted in the death of his half-brother. After Amnon's death, Absalom fled to Geshur and stayed there for 3 years. David was deeply moved, but later allowed Absalom to return to Jerusalem for 2 years. David did not receive him or speak to him. Unsatisfied, Absalom sought the help of Joab to intercede for him, and father and son were reconciled. After the reconciliation, Absalom began to conspire against his father. As recounted in 2 Samuel 15, Absalom arranged for a chariot with horses to be prepared and hired 50 guards to form his personal guard. Every day he went to the city gate to receive people seeking justice from King David and inquired about their situation. Absalom claimed that the person's cause was just and lamented that the king had no one to listen to them. He warmly greeted them with a kiss, thus winning the hearts of the people of Israel. 4 years later, Absalom requested permission from the king to go to Hebron and fulfill a vow he had made to God. The king granted permission without suspecting that Absalom was planning to take the throne in Hebron. Absalom sent messengers to all the tribes of Israel, instructing them to proclaim his coronation as king in Hebron when they heard the trumpets. While offering sacrifices, Absalom summoned Ittai, a counselor of David, to join him, and over time many others joined the conspiracy, increasing their strength. A messenger arrived in Jerusalem to inform David that all the people of Israel had joined Absalom and that they had to flee immediately, or it would be too late. The king and his family left immediately, leaving only 10 concubines to care for the palace, while Absalom and a multitude of followers entered Jerusalem. Absalom took an action that showed disrespect toward David by involving himself with his father's concubines in the sight of all Israel, and he also planned to pursue and kill David. However, Absalom decided to seek the advice of a loyal friend of his father, Hushai. Hushai advised Absalom to gather a great army and lead the search and destruction of David. The men of Israel preferred to follow Hushai's advice, as God had decided to frustrate Ahithophel's plans to prevent Absalom's success. Hushai was loyal to David and warned him about Absalom's plans, allowing them to prepare for battle. David, following the advice of his men, decided not to participate in the battle, considering that his life was too valuable to risk. However, the king ordered them to be kind to Absalom during the fight. Absalom encountered some of David's men and tried to flee on a mule, but he got caught by the head between the branches of a large tree. A soldier of David reported this incident to Joab, who asked why the soldier had not killed Absalom. The soldier replied that he would not do it even for 1,000 pieces of silver, as he had heard the king's orders not to harm Absalom. Disobeying the king's orders, he thrust 3 spears into Absalom's chest, and then 10 of Joab's armor-bearers surrounded him and killed him. Thus Absalom, the son of David, died. Adonijah, the son of David, was the 4th son of King David. He became known in the Bible for his attempt to take his father's throne. His story is recorded in the book of 1 Kings, which offers an intriguing narrative of the challenges involved in royal succession in Israel. Adonijah was born in Jerusalem during David's reign and was the son of one of the king's wives. After the death of his older brothers, he became one of the possible successors to the throne. However, David, instructed by God, had already chosen Solomon, his son with Bathsheba, as his successor. Despite David's decision that Solomon would be the next king, Adonijah, backed by influential people, decided to proclaim himself king even before his father's death. This defiant action caught the attention of the wise leaders of Israel and David. According to the book of 1 Kings, Adonijah secretly conspired with the army commander and the priest Abiathar to support his usurpation of the throne. He organized a banquet attended by his brothers, the king's sons, and some important officials from Judah. However, he did not invite Solomon, the son chosen by God to be the next king, nor the prophet Nathan, nor the personal guard, who did not support Adonijah. Upon learning of the banquet, Nathan warned Bathsheba about Adonijah's plan and instructed her to act quickly. Bathsheba went to see David and informed him about the conspiracy, saying that Adonijah had proclaimed himself king. David took immediate action to ensure that Solomon would be recognized as the true king. He summoned the priests, prophets, and officials of his kingdom for a public ceremony in which Solomon was anointed as king and declared David's successor. News of Solomon's coronation reached Adonijah's banquet, causing panic among the guests who scattered for fear of their lives. Adonijah ran to the tabernacle and took hold of the horns of the altar, pleading with Solomon not to kill him. Solomon decided to spare his life, but warned that any disloyalty would result in his death. Some time later, Adonijah asked Solomon for permission to marry Abishag, a young woman who had cared for King David in his old age. Solomon interpreted this request as a threat to his authority and the kingdom of Israel. He ordered Benaiah, one of his commanders, to execute Adonijah. Solomon's decision to kill Adonijah was probably due to the fact that, although Abishag had not had intimate relations with David, she was seen by the people as one of his wives. Adonijah's request represented a direct affront to the new king, as taking his father's concubines was seen by Solomon as an attempt to claim the throne. Therefore, Solomon decided to eliminate any possibility of a conspiracy by executing Adonijah. This was the tragic end in the life of another of David's sons. These tragic destinies of his sons were sources of great distress and suffering for David as a father. He certainly experienced the anguish of seeing his own descendants involved in painful and destructive actions. Amnon's death caused even more tension and conflict between David and his sons. Absalom's attempt to take his father's throne created divisions and an atmosphere of rivalry in the kingdom, and Adonijah, following in his brother's footsteps, also coveted the throne but met a fatal fate. David, despite being a great king and being called a man after God's own heart, was not exempt from tragedies and challenges. This shows us that even the most important figures in the Bible are subject to pain and suffering. It also teaches us that only God, who created the heavens and the earth and everything in them, is perfect. I hope you enjoyed learning a little more about the history of David's sons. I want to know a little more about you. So leave a comment here telling me which country you are watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Give it a thumbs up, and see you in the next video. God bless you.